Perl. There are insiders and there are outsiders. The insiders are the multitudes in Israel and some here in this room today who have a gaping hole in their hearts. It's those who have an empty seat at the table that used to belong to a brother, to a sister, to a son or a daughter, a mother or a father. Heroes who fell defending the Jewish state, victims of terror who were ripped from us for the crime of daring to be a Jew. Then there are the outsiders. The rest of us who stand on the outside looking in, and on days like this, we see the insiders and we want so deeply to share in their grief, at least just a little bit, to reach out and take a little bit of the sorrow and put it on our own shoulders, bear the burden with them. But the stark, cold truth is that we can't. Our rabbis were brilliant in their understanding of the human psyche. And thousands of years ago already, they created customs and traditions for us that reflect the reality of our thought processes, and never is that clearer than in the laws surrounding mourning in the Jewish tradition. And amongst them is the law that when one walks into a Shiva house, the house of a mourner, a visitor to a mourner is not to speak until spoken to. And this is not some piece of antiquated etiquette. It is a reflection of the reality that in a Shiva house, there are insiders and there are outsiders. And there is an invisible line that we can't cross. We come to a Shiva house and so deeply we want to help. We want to make it better. But we can't. In fact, we can't come unless the insider invites us in. So we don't speak until spoken. So what do we as an outsider do? And you're Rabbi Perl. What can we do? I want to suggest to you this evening two possibilities. The first one was made clear to me on January 3rd of this year. I was in Israel with my family. We had gone to celebrate the birth of our first grandchild. My wife and our younger kids had left. I stayed for a few more days. I had some meetings for work. It happened to be that one of those meetings was canceled, and I got myself an entire day open on my calendar. And the outsider in me said, I need to come closer to the grief, to the pain that Am Yisrael and the Jewish people have been feeling for months. I need to understand it myself. And so the first thing I tried to do was to get out to one of these tours that was happening in the area affected by October 7th, Kibbutz Be'eri and the others, but I was told repeatedly that it was too late. It was too last minute. And so instead, even though my family had participated in volunteer work while we were all there, I decided maybe I'll volunteer somewhere, doing something that perhaps I wouldn't have done together with my family. And so I got onto a few of the Israeli WhatsApp groups for volunteers, and somebody posted that their uncle needed help with his avocado trees in Moshav Zimrat. So I took up my phone and went onto Google Maps and asked myself, well, where is Moshav Zimrat? Sure enough, it's right there, next to God. It's right there in the neighborhood of Kfar Aza, Nachalos, and Be'erim. An area that used to be serviced by Arab workers and Thai workers. But nobody was coming to the fields anymore. And they needed help. So I responded, tell me where to be and when. And he introduced me to his uncle. His uncle responded and told me 8 o'clock. Come inside the shire, the gates of the Moshav, and somebody will be there to meet you, and I'll take you out to the avocado orchard. And sure enough, that's what I did. I came, an older gentleman was there with his pickup truck. I leave my car, I go into his truck, we go up over the curb of the sidewalk, and into the neighboring field, and through the muddy path, and out to the avocado orchard. And the first thing I remember thinking was this tree seemed endless. Endless rows of trees, and there was me and one other person, an Israeli agriculture student. And our job for that day was to trim the fruit, the bottom branches off the trees because they can't grow too low, and harvest any avocados that might be on it. And I looked around and it was just the two of us, and I didn't know how we were going to make a dent in the work that had to be done. And so for the next 5 hours we worked. I would say we worked in silence, but that wasn't quite true. Because there was a soundtrack playing the entire time of rotor blades, of helicopters, the roar of fighter jets, the rat-tat-tat of machine guns and the occasional artillery fire. And the Israeli who I was working with turned to me and said, don't worry, it's us, not them. That's going to make it feel better. 5 hours into our work, somewhere around 1:30, 2 o'clock, he turns to me and he says, we're done. And when he said we're done, I figured what he meant was we're done for the morning. It's time to take a break. We'll come back in the afternoon. He said it's time to take all the avocados that we had gathered and put them on the back of this trailer attached to his pickup truck. And he turned to me again and he said, we're done. We're done for the day. So here I was, in Otet Aza, the Gaza envelope, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was done. And so I had a choice. I could leave the Moshav, turn east, then head north, back to Rehoboth where I was staying. Or I could turn west. And that's what I decided to do. I found Kibbutz Be'eri, and I knew I wouldn't be able to get in, but I figured let me at least get close. The outsider in me wanted to touch and feel what had happened. Let me see if there's anything I can see. And so I turned left as I came out of Moshav, and I turned left again, down Route 232, heading to Kibbutz Be'eri. And as I'm heading down this road, I see on my right-hand side there's a sign that says Ya'ar Be'eri, the Be'eri forest. I didn't make much of it, I kept going, and as I went a little bit further, I could see outside my window that out there in that park there seemed to be some commotion. There were cars and people gathered, there seemed to be buses where people were getting off. And a few minutes later I decided, you know what, I really should go see what that is. And so I pulled over, I turned my car around, went back to this sign, and I pulled in to Ya'ar Be'eri. I figured this might be the site of the no professor. And as I pulled in and I'm traveling now on the park road, the first thing you see on the right-hand side is this hilltop that has this massive sign that says on the top, bring them home now. Has a huge Magen David in the bottom says, Zachinu la'ahov. We have the opportunity, the privilege to love. As you make your way past this little hilltop, there is a massive open field. And it is not hard to imagine hundreds, if not thousands of young people gathered there for a night of concerts, a music festival. And if you look a little bit closer, you begin to see in various corners of the field makeshift memorials that look like this, and this, and this. But I turned from the field and over to where people were gathering because I thought there was something even more significant happening in the distance. That's where the cars were and the buses were. And perhaps some in the room have been there. It is one of the most amazing sights I've ever seen. It's a bunch of sticks in the ground. A bunch of sticks in the ground. Each one has a picture. And I start walking through pictures of young people. Pictures of fun-loving, music-loving, peace-loving young people. Young people who could be my daughter or my son. Young people who could be my students, former or present. And as I looked into their faces, I realized what this day is about. Because no, I can't take the grief of those who are mourning, but what I can do is what these pictures ask us to do, which is know me. Every picture you look at says the same thing. Know who I was. Ask how I lived, not how I died. Were you an athlete? Or an artist? Did you love school? Did you hate school? What kind of music did you like? Know me. Know who I was. Know what made me go. Know what made me laugh. Know what made me cry. Know me. And that is what we can do today. We can turn to those who are insiders and we can say, tell me about the one you love. Tell me who they were. Tell me how they lived. Let me know that. And it dawned on me that what was happening in this site was not all that dissimilar to something that happened here. As many of you know, our faith team made a decision early on in this year that we were not going to put the mezuzot on our campus up immediately when we entered the building. We were going to wait for a moment in which we could use it to teach. We would gather our students together, teach them about mezuzah, the mitzvah of mezuzah. We would teach them what blessing we make when we put the mezuzah up. Then we would pair middle schoolers with upper schoolers. We'd fan out throughout the campus. And at the designated time, we would all put the mezuzah up together. And the plan was then to burst out in singing and dancing, celebrating this new, beautiful school that we were dedicating. The problem was the date that we had chosen to do this was Friday, October 13th. And when October 2nd happened, we realized we couldn't go ahead the way we had planned. And so instead, we made a decision that in the package that we gave our students that had the mezuzah and the date and the blessing and the instructions, we would also put a placard, a little piece of cardboard paper that had a picture of a soldier. And we would put that picture up next to our mezuzot that protect our homes, next to those who are protecting our homeland. Pictures of young people, of soldiers who have fallen, not sometime in the distant memory, defending Israel. Not soldiers who had fallen in the past year or the past month, but soldiers who had fallen that week. We wanted to know their faces. We wanted to see their stories. Unfortunately, pieces of paper don't last forever. And so we also made a decision that we would take these placards when they came down, and we would preserve the memory of those who adorned our doors for so many months with a permanent plaque that will go at the big front of our school. At the turnstiles as you enter our campus from here going forward is a plaque that reads the original mezuzot on this campus were put up by JLA students on October 13th, 2023. Each one was accompanied by the name and picture of an IDF soldier who fell in combat defending our beloved state of Israel earlier that week. May the memory of their bravery and heroism be a blessing for us all. And 144. names. Names that were faces, names that asked us to know them, and that was the first thing we can do. And you almost even know. There's a second thing. And that is we can say thank you. And that's easier said than done. And how exactly we thank somebody for giving the ultimate sacrifice is complicated, and never was it clear to me just how difficult that was. And in the text I received on December 14th of this past year, it was a text from a cousin, my second cousin living in Israel. His son, Aryeh Thaler, had been injured seriously in an explosion in Gaza. Shrapnel entered his body, ricocheted throughout. But Aryeh miraculously recovered and soon was talking to the news about how he intended to go back and rejoin his unit. But not everybody in his unit was so fortunate. Nazi the medic didn't make it out. And a few days later, he succumbed to his wounds, and my cousin had been coming from the shiva call that he paid to the parents of Nazi the medic. And on his way back, he starts writing this text, and he notes that Nazi's funeral had happened on the day that was to be his 23rd birthday. And he learned that the day that was to be Nazi's 23rd birthday was the day that Nazi had planned to get the beach. And here he is writing me this text. And he asks the following question to ponder. How does one thank a grieving family whose son literally saved your son's life? How do we thank someone whose child gave their life so that your child could have his? And this is the question that we ask today. How do we thank people who have given their lives so that we can live? Who have given their lives so that our community can live, so that our people can live, so that our state can live? How do we say thank you? And I want to give you one, perhaps unconventional answer for this. I believe that we can say thank you to every Nazi Eitan and everyone like him by clarifying a misconception that I am hearing all too often. And I'm not talking about the misconceptions that are out there in the media, or the misconceptions or lies that are being spread in campaigns on campuses throughout our country. I'm talking about a misconception that I hear all the time in our community, at Shabbat tables, here in our own school. I'm hearing it all the time. And it goes like this. Today, with everything that's happening in America, it's the 1930s all over again. It's 1930s Germany, I hear people say, with all the anti-Semitism. We're living history again. It's happening again. Here we are. Didn't we learn once from what happened? It's just happening again. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I ask you today to commit that when we hear somebody say that, we stop them and we say with all due respect, no, it is not. It is not Nazi Germany. It is not the 1930s. Because as difficult as things are throughout the world for Jews today, there is a major difference between the 1930s and 2024. And that difference is, we have state of Israel. And as disturbing as what happened on October 7th was, and as much as it is true it was the worst loss of life of Jews since the Holocaust, it was not the Holocaust. And as difficult it is to hear stories of people in the kibbutzim who were trapped for 6, 8 hours before the IDF arrived. The IDF arrived. When my grandmother was on a cattle car to Auschwitz for 6, 7, 8 hours, days, nobody arrived. Nobody arrived. And went on a death march, led out of Auschwitz. She crawled into a ditch on the side of the road, thinking this would be her grave, and somehow emerged from it hours later and made her way to the Russian side. It wasn't the IDF who received her. It wasn't a Chayelet standing in front of Yerushalayim. But today, it is and will be. So when we forget that there's a difference between today and the 1930s, we're doing a disservice to all of those who gave their life to ensure that this would be different. But when we remember and we stop people and we say, no, as bad as it is, today is different. Today we have a state. Today we have Chayalim who go to the Kotel with guns on their back and berets on their head, proud of defending the land that we have. Today we can go and stand at that Kotel and offer our own tefillot. Today we can gather in front of it. We can spend a month there learning and studying. Today we can enjoy being Jewish in the Jewish state. Today we can travel it up and down and learn its history and be part of that land, its past, and building its future. But we recognize that we give the ultimate thanks. The ultimate thanks to those who gave their lives so we could do this. When we do that, and we tell people, no, it's not the 1930s, because Am Yisrael Chai.